In about 10 minutes, you're going to realize why I don't own any guns. I grew up in a small town in Wisconsin, quite rural, a lot of wooded areas around it, a lot of grasslands, a lot of farmland, and that kind of area produces a lot of hunters. And so I think hunting is one of those things that is handed down from generation to generation, from father to son, and grandfather to father, and there wasn't any hunters in my family. In fact, I come from a very long line of mediocre bowlers. No guns at all. So one year, my younger brother Bill decides he wants a BB gun for Christmas. And he lobbied mom and dad for months before, and he begged and he pleaded and he promised he would be safe and use the gun wisely. And against my mother's strenuous objections and warnings that you'll shoot your eye out, everybody's heard that one before, Santa Claus brought him his coveted gun. And being in Wisconsin in the middle of the winter time, not really a good place to go shoot BBs. So my father set up a shooting range in our basement. He hung a canvas tarp from the ceiling, and it kind of formed a little trough in the front, and where we could collect the BBs, so we could reuse them again, because heaven help us, we weren't going to keep spending money on BBs. And we set up a little wooden sawhorse in front and put little targets on it. Little army men, plastic toys of any kind, little plastic farm animals, and we took turns. But Billy, because it was his gun and because he was lobbying so hard to get it, he got to go first. And I set the targets up and he would shoot them down and I'd set them up again, so on and so forth. After about a half an hour of this, it was my turn to shoot the gun and his turn to set up targets. Well, I hadn't shot more than maybe 5 minutes when all of a sudden he yells, "Ow, my eye, my eye!" And I'm thinking, oh gosh. And he's crying and he's covering his eyes with his hands and he wants to run upstairs to mom to be comforted. And I'm like, no, you can't go up there. Don't tell mom. Don't tell mom. I'm thinking, okay, if you're blind in one eye, we won't tell him. Maybe in 20 years we'll break it to him and everybody will have a good laugh. They won't know. So I'm holding him from physically running up the stairs to tell mom, and he's having none of it. He wants to go. And I said, they'll take the gun away. And he stopped. He stopped struggling and he stopped crying. And he took his hand off his eye, and I didn't hit him in the eye. I hit him right between the eyes. And I think to this day, he still has a little mark there, a little scar. Now, my story is that he ran in front of me when I was shooting. His story is not really important. Now I'm in college. Never fired a gun after that. I'm in college. I'm living with 5 guys in a house, and all of them were avid hunters. And a couple of years earlier, they had started a tradition going out on a small game hunt in October on a Saturday, and they had convinced all the friends and girlfriends in the group that they would do the cooking. And so they said to me, come on, go with us. And I said, nah, I don't hunt. I've never fired a gun. And they said, come on, we'll teach you. And I said, no. Well, after about 10 minutes of discussing my manhood, I acquiesced and said, okay, I'll go. So they handed me a double-barrel shotgun. And they gave me a full 60-second lesson on how a shotgun works, including the safety lesson. So they told me with a shotgun, it's got a shell in it, and the shell is loaded with a lot of little BBs again. And so they said, when you shoot, the pellets spread out and they form a big wide area of pellets that are flying through the air, and you don't really have to be right on target with your shot because they spread out, and it only takes a couple of BBs to knock down like a bird in flight or something like this. And they said, and the safety portion of this lecture was safety on, safety off. And with that information, we go hunting. Now, small game hunting entails a bunch of guys walking in a line, maybe 20 yards apart, and kind of flushing game out from the underbrush. And we're looking for squirrels and rabbits and pheasant and quail, anything that basically will move at this point. So we're out there about a half an hour, and all of a sudden I hear, Ahearn, coming your way. And I'm looking into trees for birds, I'm looking for squirrels jumping, I'm looking for rabbits running. And I said, I don't see it. He said, it's right on the ground, coming straight at you. And I look, and sure enough, straight at me is a rabbit. So I flash back to my 60-second instruction on how to fire a gun, big pattern, don't have to be real accurate. And I figure, well, he's coming straight at me. I'm gonna wait till he's right there. So he's maybe from me to the end of this step in front of me, and I fire the gun. And I was somewhat surprised by the recoil, but even more surprised that I had missed him. And he literally almost hopped over my foot and kept running. I have a double-barrel shotgun, which means I have 2 shots, but I was too stunned to turn around and take another shot because I figured, how did I miss? Big pattern, how do you miss? So they told me the second lesson. At that range, it's like a slug. You better be real accurate and dead on. Now I'm a hunter. A little while later, I hear 2 shots fired, and I hear one of my roommates yelling, Ahearn, knock it down, knock it down. And I see something over in the grassy area, and it's flopping around. I can see it's a bird of sorts. I don't know what it is. And I get up close to it, got to be accurate, and I fire that shot. Poof! Feathers. The biggest piece we found was a wing. So then they tell me that in hunting parlance, knock it down literally means knock it down. Don't let it get lost in the underbrush. Okay, now I know. So we go back, we're done hunting, we go back, and I find out, they tell me that the rules of the woods are you hunt, you clean, which they handed me a squirrel and a hunting knife. Now, I don't know if you've ever gutted a squirrel, but it doesn't smell very good when you get to the bowels. And I was trying to pull the hide off, and that's not coming very good. I don't know if I expected to, unzip its sweater and slip its arms off, but it wasn't coming. I handed the squirrel back, I handed the knife back, I said, listen, I am not eating, I'm not hunting, I'm done. Okay, flash forward now, I'm a parent, and I've got a son, and what does he want? He wants a BB gun. And up to his mother's objections, no, it's not safe, he's too young, and I finally convinced her we'll put a trigger lock on it, everything will be safe, we'll hold the keys, and so on and so forth. So one night, my wife and I are out, we went out to dinner, we're only a few minutes away, and I told my son and daughter, I said, I want you guys to stay home tonight, don't go out, I want you to stay home. They both had cell phones, they were old enough to stay home, but kind of young. And my daughter's upstairs in her bedroom, and she hears a sliding door open and close. So she calls her brother on his cell phone. His bedroom's all 4 feet away, but she uses her cell phone. And she says, did you hear that, Cole? And he says, Haley, I'm not even home. Now, Cole's idea of staying home is I can go to Nico's with my friends. And he says, call 911. She says, I don't want to call 911. She was afraid maybe she'd get in trouble. And so he says, I'll call. So he calls 911, and they keep him on the line. Another operator gets her on her cell phone. They tell her to hide in the room, turn the lights off, hide in the closet, do whatever you can. The other operator's talking to Cole and asks, are there any weapons in the house? And he says, yeah, I've got a BB gun. And the operator says, can your sister use it to protect herself? He says, well, my parents have a trigger lock on it. So it's a Friday night, it's quiet in Oro Valley, so they send 5 of their finest out to my home to check out this home invasion. And they have the house pretty much surrounded, all the doors, and the operator tells my daughter, it's okay to go down, the police are at the front door. So she goes down, and there are 5 guys, 2 at the front door, back doors, the sliding door that was locked, with their guns drawn. And they come in and they search my entire house, top to bottom, closets, behind furniture, under the beds, and I've got, 5 cops running through my house, and I'm not there. So the safety portion we have talked about with my son a lot of times. Before he had had the gun, we told him, you got to be safe, you can't shoot it in the house, you don't point at anybody, you always assume it's loaded, and so on and so forth. And one day I'm sitting watching TV. I'm watching one of these like hunting shows, an outdoor show type of thing. And sitting on the coffee table there is my son's airsoft gun. Now, if you know what an airsoft gun is, it's a plastic gun, and it fires a plastic BB. What can it hurt, right? Well, I had told him, you don't fire that in the house, you don't fire it lamps, because, you'll poke somebody's eye out with it, type of thing. So I'm watching a hunting show, and I pick it up, and I'm following along on this TV, I don't know if it was a deer or whatever it was, and it stops, and I fired. And the gun was loaded. And I put a hole in the screen of my brand new big screen TV. Now, nobody's home when I did this. So I put the gun away, and that night my wife and I are watching TV. And she's looking at it, and she says, "What is that on the guy's face?" And he moved it, and it was still there. And she gets up close, and she looks at it, and she says, "There's a hole in our TV screen." And she's just about to call Haley and Cole down from their bedrooms to explain what happened. When I had to fess up and say, "Yeah, it wasn't the kids, it was me." And I got a lecture on gun safety. So now you know why I don't own any guns.